Welcome to the number 23 team in this deep dive power ranking series for the upcoming 2021-2022 NBA season. Today, unveiling the Minnesota Timberwolves, the most depressing franchise this side of the Sacramento Kings. They've had 2 playoff wins in 32 years, but their future is definitely bright with number 1 overall pick Anthony Edwards, with number 1 overall pick Karl Anthony Towns, with D'Angelo Russell, and a new coach that is not named Ryan Saunders. Last season was one to be forgotten. They had injuries. They had the worst coach in the history of basketball. They had to deal with COVID, and it was just not a good time for them. They ended the season 23-49, 13th in the Western Conference, 25th in the power rankings last season, as well as not even getting their first round pick. They traded away to get D'Angelo Russell in that D'Lo Andrew Wiggins trade, and it hurts to think about what the Wolves would look like, what their bench would look like if they had a Jonathan Kuminga, James Bouknight on their team, but they don't. The past is the past. There's only the future to look forward to. And while the franchise itself is in a depressing state, they have legitimate talent on their team. They have a big 3. They have D'Lo, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, point guard, wing, center. In today's NBA, you need a big 3 to win championships, and the Timberwolves have their big 3. They have talent. They should be able to compete for a title at some point in the near future. The questions around them are, can they stay healthy? Can they all stay healthy and play together? They only played, I think, 23 games last season. I have here they were 13-10 when Karl Anthony Towns and D'Lo played at the same time. Can they stay healthy? Can they develop and hit their potential? Mostly Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I think D'Lo, we kind of know what he is at this point. This is his peak performance, which isn't bad. He's a quality player, but he's not going to be the superstar that Anthony Edwards has the potential to be. He's not going to be best center in the game that Karl Anthony Towns has the potential to be. Can their play styles mesh together? I still have significant questions about D'Angelo Russell running the point guard on a championship team. But all that being said, they were 13-10, over 500 when Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell played at the same time, including Anthony Edwards because he played every single game last season. And the age disparity of their prime and rookie players aren't as bad as, say, the Warriors. Steph is in his mid-30s, I think, 32, 33 right now. Whereas Karl Anthony Towns is still hitting his prime at 26. So a lot of people are mocking, oh, the Warriors need to trade James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga for fucking Pascal Siakam or some horribly lopsided trade when you look at the potentials of the players that they have versus the player that they're getting back. But they are competing for a title. Win now. Capitalize on the small window that this championship team has. I don't think the Timberwolves are in that spot. I think they can continue to gather more resources, more talent on their team while still trying to compete, make the playoffs, and hopefully get into title contention. I say that, though, and every year feels like, oh, if this player just continues to get better, the Timberwolves can make the playoffs and or win a series and or get to the Western Conference Finals. And listen, I think they are the second most burdened franchise behind the Sacramento Kings, maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers. It has been a struggle to be a Timberwolves fan. There's been some Ben Simmons rumors coming over to Minnesota as well. Now, I'm not sure how a young socialite would want to be in Minnesota. It's not exactly Los Angeles or Miami, but he's good friends with Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell. But that means, was Anthony Edwards going to be on the way out? Would you do a straight up swap Anthony Edwards for Ben Simmons? I don't even think I would do that. And then to match salaries and with the horrible picks that Daryl Morey is asking for Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, they'd probably have to send away Malik Beasley and a couple firsts to get Ben Simmons. And is he going to push you over the top into championship contention? I don't think so. If you could flip D'Angelo Russell for Ben Simmons straight up, that might work. That could be a good fit because everybody else on the team can be a decent three-point shooter outside of Jared Vanderbilt. But because of their friendship, and that would probably be one of the main reasons why Ben Simmons would want to come to Minnesota, that friendship, that camaraderie that they have, and that sort of chemistry that D'Angelo Russell offers off the court that isn't seen in the numbers, I just don't think it's going to happen. So get your hopes up all you want for Ben Simmons. It's probably not going to happen. Now, the Timberwolves were not a good defensive team. It's yet to be seen on their players because a lot of them have the talent to be a good defender. Karl Anthony Towns has the talent to be a good defender. Malik Beasley has the talent to be a good defender. They're just not. But of course, in today's NBA, if you can be a middle-of-the-pack defensive team and an elite offensive team, that is a formula for championship success. So let's move on to this offseason moves that they've made. They had 2 trades, kind of a quiet offseason. You don't really expect much in Minnesota. You can get some overpaid players like the Jeremy Grant contract or maybe the Christian Wood contract. Those would be the highest possible quality of move that you're going to get in Minnesota unless I just don't see a Kevin Durant or Damian Lillard kind of player coming to Minnesota unless you trade for them. They got rid of Ricky Rubio and Juan Hernan Gomez, and they brought in Patrick Beverley and Torian Prince. Beverley going to bring in that toughness and veteran experience that this team needs because they are, I believe, the second youngest roster in the league. Torian Prince giving them some more three-point shooting that's kind of missing on this team. The Timberwolves suck. They only have 11 players on their current roster as of today and two two-way contracts, while most teams have like 16, 17, getting ready for their preseason, getting ready to see who they're going to make it the regular season cuts. They still, to this point of recording, haven't signed or re-signed or let walk Jordan McLaughlin. They haven't done anything with Jared Vanderbilt. They're just sitting there waiting, and it's already August, September. The season starts in a month and they still don't even know who's going to be on their team. They still have 4 more roster slots to fill and they haven't done anything yet. I'm just more fucking, what are you doing with your goddamn lives, Timberwolves front office? But they did lose Jarrett Culver as well in one of the trades, who just never really panned out for this team. Hopefully he's going to have a fresh start in a new location, get his head straight. He's a former number 6 overall draft pick, so the talent is there somewhere. He just needs a sort of campaign-ish kind of resurgence, somebody to fix his weaknesses, somebody to get his head straight, and hopefully a fresh start will do that for him. Nothing but best of wishes to him on Memphis. And they lost Juan Hernan Gomez, who I think he had some issues with the front office. He had an injury, I believe it was a shoulder injury. And then he wanted to play in the Olympics, but the Timberwolves said, no, we need you here. Don't play in Spain for the Olympics. Play for our team and win championships. And then he had an issue because they wouldn't let him play or something happened there. So he essentially forced his way out. He didn't have a great season for them regardless. He's known as a shooter, and he wasn't a great shooter for them last year. So the losses aren't really that great. In the offseason moves, they just didn't make a lot because they're really reliant on their big 3 continuing to grow, develop, and mesh. By the time the season starts, I expect them to pick up a little more depth. Let's look at their point guard ranking. I have them at 17th, and of course, leading the way is D'Angelo Russell. We know who D'Lo is. He's good for 19 and 6. He has some playmaking concerns. He's a volume shooter. He's one of those point guards that's really a shooting guard, and he takes some really bad shots like long contested 2s or 0 passes in the possession, just dribbles and shoots the 3 and doesn't get anybody involved. And so with Ricky Rubio gone and Jordan McLaughlin, you don't even know what they're doing with that. And bringing in Patrick Beverley, who's himself not really a pure point guard, they're going to have some playmaking creation issues. D'Angelo Russell can do it to some extent. He is averaging over 5 assists a game, but he's not going to be your point guard. He's not going to be your distributor that you'd want. Maybe Anthony Edwards can come in and do it. Now, last year wasn't as good for D'Angelo Russell. He did sit out 42 games, or he only played 42 games last season due to injury, and then he was running to the bench unit. He was coming, he just had trouble finding his way onto the court. And it's not like last year was a bad year. He just shot he made under 20 points per game and shot 43% from the field. But then again, he did have his career high in 3-point percentage. So I can't argue with 38.7% from the 3. His turnover rate was also at a career low last year, which is a great sign for your hopefully point guard, D'Angelo Russell. I kind of wish that we would just let D'Angelo be a 2 guard and they would bring in a Ben Simmons as kind of point guard to let him play his game. D'Lo's talent is scoring the ball, putting the ball in the bucket, less so creating and distributing for his teammates. So strengthen your strengths, put your players in the best position to succeed. I wish there was somebody on the Timberwolves that could take over that primary point guard role, move D'Lo to the 2, play Anthony Edwards at the 3, and that would be an incredible team to watch, but they just don't have the players. They don't have the talent to do it. And of course, D'Angelo Russell cannot defend to save his life, but thankfully in today's NBA, defense is an afterthought, bringing us to one of the best defenders in NBA, Patrick Beverley. We know who Pat Bev is. He's a stubborn defender who tiptoes the line of legal basketball play. He'll give you close to nothing on offense. I was actually surprised when I saw his 3-point percentage. He almost shot 40% from the 3 last year for the Clippers. Then again, most of his offensive role was bring the ball up the court, give it to Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, and just go stand in the corner to get a wide open 3-point shot. It's not a shot creating 40% from the 3-point line, but he's good enough. He is starting to age out. He has a major injury history. Every season it feels like he's missing 20, 30, 40 games. He's missing a game in the playoffs to some injury somewhere. Part of that is maybe he's just not durable anymore. Part of that is his age. Part of that is the way he plays. He just goes all out, gives you 100% full energy kind of guy. And that's going to come with its consequences. You're going to get into skirmishes and scrums. You're going to bang heads with Devin Booker, and you're going to get hurt sometime. Now, is he staying here? Is he actually content with being on Minnesota, or is he going to ask to be bought out? Knowing Patrick Beverley, just from what I've seen of his tape, of his interviews, I think he's going to stay here in Minnesota. He's going to try to be a leader for the team. bring some toughness that Jimmy Butler wasn't able to bring. And I expect the fit to be very good for him. Maybe he'll bring along some of these cats and show them a little toughness that is lacking in today's NBA. Jordan McLaughlin, like I said, McLaughlin, am I right? We don't know if he's re-signing or not. He was a fine backup point guard for them. I know a lot of Timberwolves fans were really high on him. I didn't see anything to jump off the tape. He's a good enough three-point shooter. He's a good enough ball distributor. He's a good enough kind of shooter, but for the most part, he's not going to blow you away. He's a low-tier backup point guard, and I guess that's all you really want from him. Maybe get a nice $5 million contract, or he'll come back on his qualifying offer, and he can handle some primary ball handler responsibilities for the second unit. Moving us to the pride and joy of this franchise, the wing player rankings, most notably Anthony Edwards, former #1 overall pick. And let's just say this now, Anthony Edwards grew 2 inches. He's now 6'6". It is confirmed that Anthony Edwards can grow as a player. He had some incredible games last season, and he was my rookie of the year. Now, that's a little bit because I had Nikola Jokic over Joel Embiid from games played, as well as the statistics were very similar between him and LaMelo. LaMelo was better in the early season, got that injury, then Anthony Edwards just took off. Now, let me just get my full disclaimer out. I'm not sold on Anthony Edwards. Talent alone can get you 20 a night in the NBA, and while he's a great interview, I don't know if he's a great player. That said, I've come around on his #1 selection. I was a LaMelo guy at the draft, and now just seeing the greatness that he's shown flashes of, I'm intrigued. I thought his humor and his confidence came off as a little, I don't need to practice, I'm already good. And the thing about the NBA is it takes 5 years to hit your peak. The great players don't just walk around being talented, but they have insane work ethics, putting up 500 shots in the dog days of summer. Almost people are still asleep at 3 a.m., outworking Giannis, outworking Kobe Bryant. That's what the great players do. He might have a chip on his shoulder and might work even harder this offseason, losing that rookie of the year. But he had an incredible rookie season. He averaged 19 points, 4.7 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 52% true shooting, 33% three-point shooting in a rookie year. That is great. He's an elite slasher. He has ridiculous hops. He put so many people on poster alert. And his ability to adjust his dunk midair is, let me say this, a little Jordan-esque. Now, he took a lot of bad threes, and I am nitpicking a rookie here, but that's just a testament to his greatness. He has a little bit of a slow shot for him, and he took a lot of contested tough threes. He would hold the ball a long time, then do a jab step, and then shoot over the defender out of rhythm, or he'd do a step back that was unnecessary. So I hope his shot selection gets better in the next season, and I expect his three-point percentage to get a bump as well. He's a little streaky right now as a shooter. Also, partly that's just an issue with the shot creation issues from the team as a whole. He is a really good defender. He has great lateral quickness, and I just expect next year that they're going to let Anthony Edwards cook. I hope they give him the ball, let him be the primary scorer, or at least a 1A to Karl Anthony Towns' 1. And I hope Anthony Edwards continues to prove me wrong, because I was a doubter. I was a hater leading all the way to last season, and he had some incredible 40-point games. Obviously, the talent is there. I think he has the potential to be a alpha #1 on a championship roster. Bringing us over to Malik Beasley. Last year was weird for him. Part of another reason why they had roster issues is he was in jail. He was suspended by the NBA and spent like 79 days in prison for stolen property and brandishing a firearm and pleading guilty to a felony. We're just going to need some maturity from him. Even role players in the NBA are millionaires. So while you're not, this big alpha #1, can you stay out of trouble? Can you keep your head down? Players like JJ Redick made a living off being a quality role player, a good locker room guy. Don't shake up the culture. Don't make waves. Just go in, do your work, shoot 40% for the three-point line, and go home. He's a decent player. He's a great three-point shooter. 39% career three-point shooter. Shot 39.9, so basically 40% last year, which is exactly what you want in today's NBA. Duncan Robinson got $90 million over 5 years just because he can shoot the three. Now, you don't want to give him the ball much, so he can't turn it over. He's not a great ball handler. And for whatever reason, either he doesn't care or he doesn't try hard. He's just a below average defender despite having the athletics. That said, they just re-signed him to a nice contract, I think 4 years, $60 million a year kind of deal. He doesn't need the ball in his hands consistently. He's a catch and shoot guy, can run off screens. And when you have so many primary ball handlers on your team trying to work together, it's good to have guys who can just sit in the corner, set screens, run off screens, and not hold on to the ball too much. Moving on to the power forward ranking, and this one's a little hard. There's Jared Vanderbilt, there's Josh Okogie. I have Jaden McDaniels here because Timberwolves fans love him, and I don't really know what it is about him. I've seen him play a couple games. He never jumped off my screen. But Wolves Nation says he's legit. He can shoot the three, which is something that a lot of their players just seem to fail to do or never have developed. So I have him starting at the power forward position when the season starts. He's a very good defender, very aggressive, has nice hops. Had a breakout rookie season. He just didn't get as many minutes as you'd like to see from a potential starter. That being said, looking forward to his sophomore campaign. Maybe he can prove me wrong. Maybe he proves the Wolves Nation right and he becomes a great stretch four for this team. Moving us to the center position, which is an interesting one to say the least. Karl Anthony Towns, probably the third most talented center in the league right now. I have him all the way down at 5. Oh my God, the worst thing ever. Let's just get the spiel out of the way. COVID has wreaked havoc on this poor man. He got fucked up by COVID and missed 13 games. He lost his mother to COVID. He lost 6 more family members to COVID. He expressed that he feels guilty because he has the resources of an NBA star that others do not to handle COVID. He has serious survivor's guilt, and it's taken a toll on him mentally and emotionally, which just, it makes sense. I understand what he's coming from. He's made a ton of donations to the community and to COVID detection and treatment centers, and he did all this while giving you 25 points a night. So let's just put a little perspective into this series. Basketball ain't shit compared to life or death situations, especially what Karl Anthony Towns had to go through. So I have nothing but respect for him, what he's been through, and what he's overcome. Now, Karl Anthony Towns. He's going into his 7th season, 26 years old, and his numbers have always been great. Rookie season, 18-10. Sophomore season, 25-12. 21-12. 24-12. 26-10. Last year, 24-10. He's had some small injury history, but really it's just been COVID that's kept him out. He doesn't have an injury history like Anthony Davis, where he's out every other game due to a broken toenail. But can he be the elite center that he has the potential to be? He has Joel Embiid talent minus the knee injuries, back injuries, illness injuries, ankle injuries, shoulder injuries, knee injuries, knee injuries that Joel Embiid has been dealing with since he fell to number 3 in the draft. Karl Anthony Towns, if he's in the right headspace, is primed to be the best center in the game for a long time. He's a good 3-point shooter, great for a guy who's 7 foot tall. He's a big body, can be a good defender, has great size and strength, can move his feet well. Can he play bully ball? Can he punish you in the post? That's the one thing about the center position is you have to be a bully. You have to say, you're guarding me with this guy who's only 6'8". I'm going to take him to the post. I'm going to back this man down. I'm going to shoot and dunk over him. And I still, to this day, cannot get it out of my head when he wouldn't punish CP3 in the post. I think it was back on when Chris Paul was on the Thunder, and he was guarding Karl Anthony Towns one-on-one, didn't ask for help, and Karl Anthony Towns posted up for about half a second and then kicked it out because he was too afraid to take on Chris Paul, all 6'1" of him. Jimmy Buckets punked him. And he's not soft per se. I think we've finally gotten that label off of him, but he's not a beat you down alpha kind of Shaq player who's just going to back you down, shed you like a paper towel, and just yam it on your face. He is a good 3-point shooter. He's a sneaky good passer, makes some beautiful passes. He just doesn't have consistency to it. Sometimes he'll miss wide open guys, and then other times he'll make a one-handed bullet pass across the court to a wide open 3-point shooter. But he has his red flag issues. He is so uncomfortable in the paint. He always rushes his shots. He rushes his passes. He gets out of control, and he makes bad decisions. He misses so many jump hooks, layups, close shots that should go in, but because he's rushing it, because he's flustered, because he doesn't have that comfort zone in the paint, he just forgets how to play basketball for whatever reason. So this is what players mean, and you hear this a lot when guys take that next step, when the game slows down for them. And Karl Anthony Towns in the post just hasn't had that. He has all the talent in the world to be there. He has the capacity. I've seen him make running jump hooks like it was fucking nothing. But he needs to slow down and breathe when he's in the post. Let his talent do the work. He also had some foul issues in the second half of the season. He let people get under his skin, and he gets frustrated easily. So you pair that with him being a legitimate big center, 6'11", 250 pounds, and it can exaggerate contact, especially in today's flop everywhere NBA. And just so many times he would draw fouls, get into foul trouble. I think he led the league in fouls for the second half of the season. It was difficult and frustrating to say the least. He has the capacity to play defense, but does he want to do it consistently? Some games he's going to be a fucking Dikembe Mutombo blocking anything and everyone that comes into the paint. Other games he's just going to be a revolving door for people shooting layups. So there's just a few things for Karl Anthony Towns to work on to take that next step. The good thing about it is they're fixable. If he just slows down, if he brings some consistency, if somebody smacks him on the head and says, hey, play some goddamn defense like I know you can, and he does. This ranking here at 5th can go up. He's so good. He's so gifted, and that's why he was taken with the #1 overall pick. I don't want to come off as a hater of Karl Anthony Towns because he can be that good. I just hate his mentality, and that's what I always talk about when I want people to be alphas. I want somebody to be a Mamba. I want someone to be a killer, and I just don't know if Karl Anthony Towns has the capacity to do that. He hasn't shown it to me yet. Bringing us to Naz Reid, who's the perfect backup center. He can shoot the 3 a little bit, 35% last season. He can rebound and defend to some extent. His issue, of course, with most NBA centers these days is he's just too short. He's another 6'9", undersized but hard-working center, the perfect bench player. Has some post moves as well. Tries hard, and that's all you could want. And then they don't really have another center after this since they still lack depth on their bench. I put Jared Vanderbilt here. He's not a center, but he's a good rim runner. He plays great defense and is a high-effort rebounder, getting the offensive and defensive rebounders. He cannot shoot to save his life. 20% from the three-point line, 50% from the free throw line. He's going to need to figure out what his role is. If he wants to be a center, a big man, a small ball 5 who doesn't shoot the 3 but plays hard and rebounds, he's going to need to get stronger. If he wants to be a wing player, he's going to need to learn how to shoot, which probably isn't going to happen. So I don't think we're ever going to see Jared Vanderbilt become like an all-star caliber player, but he's going to give you good, high-effort, high-energy minutes off the bench, which brings us to their bench ranking, which was actually surprisingly high last season. I was shocked by it. They had the 10th highest bench efficiency last season, which was surprising. But so what I think happened is Anthony Edwards came off the bench for a little bit in the beginning of the season. D'Angelo Russell came off the bench a little bit. Malik Beasley, of course, came off the bench and went to jail for a little bit. You include that with Ricky Rubio and Naz Reid. I guess technically your bench is good, but that means your starting lineup is shit. So for their bench, they have Jalen Noel. He did some scoring in the G League. Still a little too young, a little too green to really see what he can do. Josh Okogie, can't shoot, can defend. Taurean Prince, a nice 40% shooter that they brought in their trade. He's a little disappointing. We thought he was going to be like Jay Crowder 2.0 when he was with the Atlanta Hawks. He just never got that toughness, but he is a much better shooter, which is what is desperately needed on this team with so many players who don't shoot the ball from 3 very well. Jake Layman, you know, he's here. And then they have some two-way players in Nathan Knight and McKinley Wright. I haven't seen any tape on them. I just can't really speak about how good they are, if they're even going to see any minutes in the regular season. Which brings us to their coach and culture ranking, and it's a little high if you just look at it straight up at 20th. Just from what I've seen recently, they aren't doing moves to significantly hurt themselves like what the Pelicans have done. They're not making moves to make them a worse team, which is, I guess, a step in the right direction and something that most NBA teams fail to do. At least since they got rid of Ryan Saunders, it's been smart moves that aren't wrecking the team. Watching old Wolves games was absolutely fucking ridiculous. The Ryan Saunders Timberwolves, their team would literally have their plays fail at the 18-second mark in the shot clock. They'd set like one on-ball screen, one off-ball screen in the corner, and then 15 seconds of D'Angelo Russell iso ball, and they make a contested shot that would miss. Their players didn't know how to run a fast break. Their players didn't know their roles on their team. It was just a horrible time to watch basketball. So I guess we'll see what Chris Finch has. This is his first year, his first time as a head coach in the NBA. There's some signs that he's better than Ryan Saunders, which is a very low bar. That being said, I think the Wolves could use a real head coach with NBA experience like a Terry Stotts. I want to see them make a move if the talent opens up, or what Doc Rivers brought to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I know they choked horribly in the playoffs. We'll talk about that at another time, but he elevated the team, got the right rotations, got the players to buy into a culture, and they need to develop their talent as they're hitting Karl Anthony Towns and D'Lo's prime. They need to develop the talent that Anthony Edwards has. So I'd like them to bring in somebody like a Terry Stotts or even a Mike D'Antoni if he's available, or maybe steal a coach from an existing franchise. There's no salary cap on the front office. Give Greg Popovich $100 million. I don't care. Just get somebody instead of trying to get these first-time head coaches who have no idea what they're doing, further wrecking and ruining the talent that you have on this team. Gerson Rosas is the president of basketball operations. They haven't hired a GM since they fired Scott Layden last December, and he's in a tough spot. Minnesota's where players don't really want to sign because, you know, with all small markets, you got to draft, you got to develop, you got to build a culture, and you got to make trades to bring in talent, unlike Brooklyn or LA, who can literally sign anyone to a fucking minimum contract like Blake Griffin. It's ridiculous, but he's made some smart moves, most notably getting rid of the worst coach in the history of basketball, and I'm totally fine with them so far. They're owned by Alex Rodriguez. They're really owned by Mark Lore. Alex is a big name that everybody recognizes. Bringing us to their season projections at 33.5 wins. They might finally maybe make the playoffs. I think I would take the over on this. They're just such an underperforming team. They have the talent. Can they make the right moves to get their bench right? And can their big three develop and grow and mesh together? Their championship odds are 150 to 1. Season results, if you just take the 33.5 wins, is 12th seed, late lottery pick. Basketball Siberia of not good enough to make the playoffs and compete for a title, not bad enough to get a high draft pick. I think this season is a playoff or bust kind of season because they have the talent. They should make the playoffs. The West got weaker. It sounds cliche, but they just need to make basketball fun again out there in Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns has the talent. D'Lo will facilitate ish, and Anthony Edwards lived up to the highest hype last season. He can be a legitimate all-star in this sophomore campaign. So the perfect season for them, I guess, would be D'Angelo Russell continues to facilitate and gets better at creating for his team, focuses less on his 20 a night and more on his 6 assists a night. Anthony Edwards takes that next step up in his second season and looks like the second coming of Michael Jordan. Malik Beasley continues to hit 40% of his threes and stays out of jail. Jaden McDaniels becomes a perfect 3-and-D stretch 4. Karl Anthony Towns takes a notice from Joel Embiid and becomes an unstoppable bully. And then Patrick Beverley shows his team how to be tough, doesn't call his teammates soft, and then whoops them with the third stringers in a practice scrimmage. That would be the perfect ideal season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Hopefully, dear God, make the playoffs because Timberwolves Nation is thirsty to see some success in their basketball franchise. So that's a number 23 team in this power rankings. Good core, good roster. Can they just put it together? Let me know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one where we unveil team number 22.